They say the devil's in the details, but in my house, he wore a lavender robe and forgot to delete her smartwatch history. On Tuesday morning, I found her robe still damp on the hanger, which was strange, because she always used the dryer, her excuse being it smells like fresh mornings that way. The real kicker? Her yoga tracker logged a 92-minute cardio spike at 11:06 p.m. at a retreat she swore had a strict 10 p.m. lights-out policy. And there I was, eating reheated lentil soup and watching Frasier reruns while my wife found spiritual alignment on someone else's mattress. She didn't know I'd started paying attention. Not in the confrontational, grab the phone kind of way. No, I observed like a biologist studying a slowly rotting specimen in a sterile lab. She had this new mantra lately. We deserve to become the people we were before life conditioned us. Cute, right? That line came up right around the same time her wardrobe got tighter, her phone got quieter, and her schedule got a little looser. Every weekend retreat seemed to be 1 hour farther away from home, and every return came with less eye contact and more unsolicited philosophical quotes. But it was that smartwatch data that really told the story. Heart rate spikes. Location pings that didn't match the retreat brochures. Deep REM cycles logged at bizarre times, likely post-coital naps masked as meditation. I didn't scream. I didn't even twitch. I simply saved a copy of the health data, marked it namaste.exe, and started planning the exit she'd think was hers. The irony is, she'd always said we should try intentional living. So I made my intentions very clear to myself. I made her tea every morning, chamomile with lemon, just like she liked. I kissed her goodbye as she headed off to breathe deeply with her soul sisters. I signed us up for joint therapy and acted vulnerable when the therapist asked how I felt. I'm trying to find myself again, I'd said, echoing her own script so well she nodded in admiration. I started complimenting her more, encouraged her to journal, to express herself. I even bought her a new journal myself, monogrammed, soft leather, pages thick enough to hold her secrets without bleeding through. Little did she know, I'd swapped out the last 10 pages with carbon paper, slipping copies into my office drawer each week. Call it toxic, call it brilliant, but I had receipts. Then came the big shift, our youngest left for college, and suddenly the silence between us wasn't just situational. It was architectural. She started sleeping in yoga pants instead of her old flannel set. Her phone no longer buzzed at night. It chirped during her 4 p.m. chakra realignment calls. I timed her silence. I mapped her movements. I even adjusted the thermostat slightly each day to see if she'd notice. She didn't. But what she did notice was how supportive I'd become. I was a changed man, she said. More understanding. More evolved. And when she told me she needed space to rediscover herself, I gave her the master bedroom. It's symbolic, I told her, while I moved into the guest room like some noble monk. Truth was, I'd already converted the master bathroom into a listening post. Her phone calls, her FaceTime chats. I recorded everything with a baby monitor transmitter repurposed for adult espionage. She began floating the idea of living separately to grow individually. Said she needed to follow her inner compass. I helped her look for apartments. I complimented her independence. I offered to help her pack, and I even folded her lacy bralettes while she smiled like a liberated queen. She didn't know I'd already met with the financial planner and updated our accounts, closed the joint ones, rerouted my direct deposits, and reclassified all our shared property under my name while she was in Sedona communing with the goddess. I was so helpful. She actually thanked me when she handed me the signed divorce papers she drafted herself, papers that locked in her waiving of spousal support in exchange for keeping her yoga business, which, by the way, wasn't profitable and owed more in liability insurance than it made in memberships. She left with a laugh and a little bounce in her step, believing she'd authored her freedom. 2 weeks later, I posted my new listing on Instagram, a remodeled master bedroom, fresh coat of paint, and my arm around a younger, absolutely stunning woman who actually drinks beer and reads classic literature without pretending to be healing. My caption? Sometimes, peace comes after the storm, and sometimes, you were the storm all along. My ex liked it within 5 minutes. Then unliked it. Then blocked me. I imagine her inner compass is spinning pretty violently now. For a while, it actually felt like we'd made it, 2 decades in, kids almost out, money stable, health intact. We had our routines, Sunday grocery runs, Friday takeout, coffee together on the deck where she'd read her self-help books and I'd half listen while pretending to check sports scores. She still kissed me goodbye, still laughed at my awful puns, still made her famous turmeric chicken every other week. It was just that. Something was off. It started with the way she hugged me arms around, but no squeeze. Her lips pressed against mine, but there was no warmth, no lean in. I brushed it off at first, chalking it up to stress, hormones, maybe a rough patch. But then she started changing. Not loudly, not obviously, like most betrayals, it was quiet. Insidious. Her wardrobe shifted subtly from cozy homeware to tight, expensive athleisure. She swapped sitcoms for documentaries about feminine energy and spiritual detachment. She began speaking like a therapist in a hostage situation, soft tones, deliberate pauses, phrases like holding space and releasing the narrative. I'd wake up to the scent of incense instead of bacon. Her phone, once face up and often left on the counter, now lived in her back pocket or face down, locked with a new passcode she said was for work stuff. One day, she mentioned a consciousness retreat in a mountain town I'd never heard of. No cell service, she said with a dreamy smile, just pure recalibration. When I offered to drive her, she laughed and said, "You wouldn't vibe with the energy there." That line hit me in a way I didn't yet understand. She was right. I didn't vibe with whatever energy she was chasing now. Still, I tried. I supported the new ventures, the workshops, the sudden desire to invest in a personal coaching certification. I sat in the back of her weekend seminar like a proud husband while she told strangers how she'd lost herself in marriage but was slowly reclaiming her essence. People clapped. I smiled. But inside, a question began to bloom. Who exactly was she reclaiming herself from? Our dinners changed. Conversation turned into monologues. She talked about clients, chakras, energy vampires. Her sentences rarely included "we" anymore. It was all, "I feel, I need, I want." One morning, she came down in full makeup, red lips, smoky eyes, just to run errands. She brushed past me, phone in hand, and I caught the edge of a message preview. "Miss you already. Last night was unreal face-blowing kiss. She swiped it away before I could react, kissed me on the cheek, and was out the door. My stomach sank. That was the first real crack. But I didn't say anything. I wanted to believe it was a fluke. Maybe she sent that to her friend as a joke. Maybe it was a motivational thing. Who knows? That's how far my brain went to protect the illusion. Then came the hidden credit card statements, charges to hotels in nearby towns, luxury spas, restaurant bills for two. When I asked casually what she was up to on certain weekends, her answers didn't match the receipts. Once, I checked her car's glove compartment to find a bracelet I bought her last Christmas, wrapped around a bottle of men's cologne she swore she'd never liked. My heart beat so loud I thought I'd get caught. But I closed it, quietly, pretending I hadn't seen anything. She started locking her phone in the bathroom during showers. Her social media went private to protect her client's energy, she claimed. One night, I saw her FaceTiming in the living room, and when I entered, she snapped the laptop shut and said, "Just a meditation group, babe. You wouldn't get it." She still smiled, still touched my arm at dinner, still said, "Love you," before bed. But the smile was like a politician's handshake, mandatory, hollow, calculated. One night, I watched her sleep. Her face was peaceful, lips slightly parted, one hand curled near her chest. I remember thinking how beautiful she looked, and how little of that beauty was mine anymore. It felt like living with someone who'd already packed up emotionally, just hadn't moved out physically. She didn't yell. She didn't cheat, obviously. She didn't stop saying, "I love you." She just stopped meaning it. And still, I didn't confront her. I couldn't. Not yet. Because I still remembered the girl who once sang in the kitchen, barefoot with pancake batter on her shirt, and I kept telling myself that maybe, just maybe, this was a phase. Maybe she'd find her way back. But in the quiet of that illusion, I knew deep down she was already gone. And I had to start preparing for what came next. It was a Wednesday, unremarkable in every way, until it wasn't. She'd left her laptop open on the kitchen counter while she went out for her solo grounding walk, a new ritual she'd picked up after her third retreat in as many months. The screen dimmed, but didn't lock. It was the soft glow of her inbox that caught my eye, an email notification gently pulsing in the top right corner. Subject line: "God, last night was intense. I still smell like you." The sender's name wasn't familiar, just a first name, Kai, with no last initial, no signature. Just that. And below it, a snippet: "Still can't believe you wore that tight white set. You said it was your husband's favorite? Kinda savage. Love it." I stared at it for 6 full seconds before moving. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. I knew. I knew in the way a seasoned mechanic hears an engine cough once and already understands what part will fail. My fingers hovered over the trackpad, tempted to dig deeper, scroll further, but I pulled back. Curiosity wasn't the point anymore. This wasn't a puzzle to solve. This was confirmation. The final, surgical incision that severed what little was left of my delusion. She wasn't lost, confused, or soul-searching. She wasn't reclaiming herself. She wasn't trying to evolve. She was choreographing a graceful swan dive out of a life she'd already set fire to behind the curtain. And I was just the stage prop still playing the part of the supportive husband while she sleeps someone else in activewear that I'd bought for her birthday. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just let the weight of it settle, heavy and wet, like a soaked tarp over a corpse. My hands were steady. My jaw didn't twitch. Internally, something shifted, a subtle, glacial crack deep beneath the surface. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Just a sudden, clinical awareness. She's already gone. And now, I go to work. I closed the laptop gently, as if not to wake a sleeping child. I washed my coffee mug. I wiped the counter. I sat down at the dining table and opened my phone, not to text her, not to confront her, but to start saving things. Backups. Screenshots. I looked at old shared accounts, her business LLC filing, the backup cloud she forgot we shared when she got her second phone for professional boundaries. I checked her calendar. I found gaps. I compared them with travel charges and spa appointments that didn't exist. I followed the paper trail of a woman so careless in her deception that she'd left breadcrumbs in neon. Receipts from hotel lounges she never mentioned. Spa visits logged under her friend's name but paid with our joint card. A file in her Google Drive called Affirmations for Kai. The heart emoji was a lovely touch. I didn't even feel my heart race. It was eerily calm, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. I realized that's exactly what was happening. Her life was falling apart. She just didn't know it yet. I wasn't the victim in this story. I was the witness, the collector, the archivist of her undoing. When she came back, cheeks flushed, hair tousled, pretending she'd just been on a woodland stroll, I smiled. I asked how the grounding went. She said it was nourishing. She kissed my head and told me she'd be doing a sound bath in the bedroom, that she needed alone time to release energy. I said, of course, and even offered to cook dinner. She smiled again, touched my cheek, and I stared into her eyes long enough to wonder how long it had been since they reflected anything real. That night, I lay awake beside her, the soft hum of her playlist filling the room with binaural beats and fake tranquility. She turned her back to me, curled into a ball, and mumbled something about feeling disconnected from her core. I watched the ceiling. I replayed every lie, every smirk, every moment of her slipping away disguised as self-care. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I just kept counting the seconds between each of her shallow breaths, like a machine waiting for the right moment to power up. She thought she was floating free, discovering her divine feminine path. But what she didn't know was that the ground she was dancing on had already started to collapse beneath her. And I was holding the lever. I became invisible, not in the way cowards hide, but in the way predators do, silent, calculated, never making a move until the outcome is inevitable. The first thing I did was stop reacting. No raised eyebrows, no suspicious glances, no altered routines. If she was going to lie to me, I needed her to believe she was still winning. I started waking up 10 minutes earlier to check her phone while she meditated in the living room, eyes closed, headphones on, humming to some droning soundscape called Deep Theta Alignment. Her backup device still synced to our shared cloud, Sloppy. A gift from me 2 years ago. She'd forgotten. That's where I started pulling images, voice notes, screenshots of messages sent under code names Luna and Ocean and K. Messages dripping with the kind of juvenile secrecy that betrays both guilt and excitement. I never confronted her. I smiled more. I cooked her favorite meals, asked questions with no judgment, just curiosity. You ever hear from Kayla anymore? I asked one night, knowing damn well Kayla was Kay, the woman she claimed was just a Reiki mentor, but had recently been referred to as Babe in a text signed off with tongue emojis. She blinked too slow. Oh, not really. We drifted, she said, stabbing her fork into a mushroom like it had personally wronged her. I nodded, not because I believed her, but because I was already 3 moves ahead. I booked a facial at the same spa she claimed to visit every Thursday. Showed up early. Asked about her under the guise of rescheduling my wife's regular appointment. The receptionist furrowed her brow. Sorry, we haven't seen her since last year. That same day, she'd sent me a picture of herself in a white robe holding cucumber water, captioned much-needed detox. I forwarded it to my secure folder and scheduled a meeting with a new financial advisor, Solo. I quietly removed her access to our investment portfolio, citing fraud monitoring, then rerouted email confirmations to my burner account. I posed as a potential client for her coaching business under a fake name, used AI to tweak my voice, booked a session. She never asked for a video call, just dove into the feminine wound, while her location pinged in a hotel across town. I created another fake profile, this time a man, attractive, spiritual, vague enough to pique her interest. I dropped into her DMs with harmless curiosity. Loved your workshop on inner fire. Would love to hear more about your journey. Within 2 hours, she replied. Flirty. Open. Inviting. Within 2 days, she'd shared her private cell. She sent selfies, tasteful but suggestive. She talked about how she felt unseen, unheard. I screen recorded everything. Then I turned to her best friend, Vanessa, the one who always looked a little too nervous around me. I messaged Vanessa's ex-boyfriend, told him I was looking to host a retreat and wanted to know if Vanessa was still working with my wife. He responded with confusion. Vanessa hadn't spoken to her in months. Interesting, considering she was the go-to excuse for every third emergency weekend realignment. I hired a courier to deliver flowers to her office one day, signed from me, "Happy half-year anniversary." I knew she wasn't expecting anything. We never celebrated that. I tracked the delivery. She wasn't there. The front desk receptionist took a photo of the flowers, sent it to her personal number. That photo popped up 2 hours later on her Instagram story with a caption thanking the universe for divine signs of love. No mention of me. I had her passwords, but I didn't need to check her deleted messages or crawl through her diary. I watched her unravel herself through her own digital performance. The deeper I went, the more I realized she wanted to be caught, just not by me, by someone who would understand her, pity her, worship her phoenix from the ashes narrative. I wasn't playing that part. I tested her gently. I asked if she wanted to go on a spontaneous weekend trip, someplace coastal, like we used to. She said she had a women's embodiment circle that weekend. I nodded and booked the hotel anyway, under her name, then watched as her calendar magically cleared 2 days before, replaced by private client intensive. She didn't know the hotel had cameras. She didn't know the front desk was happy to confirm her arrival with a man 10 years younger, covered in tattoos and way too comfortable calling her babe in public. I didn't confront. I just kept collecting. Quiet. Cold. Surgical. She was already dangling off the edge of her lies, arms stretched wide, thinking she was flying. I wasn't going to push her. I was just going to let gravity do the work. She thought it was just another speaking gig, some mid-tier holistic wellness expo at a boutique hotel downtown, the kind where people pay $300 to be told their trauma is sacred and their boundaries are revolutionary. She'd asked me not to come, said the space was for divine feminine energy only, and that she didn't want to dilute the container with masculine logic. I smiled and agreed, kissed her forehead, and let her float away in her white linen dress and fake humility. What she didn't know was that I had rented out the small conference room directly next to hers, under the name of a fictional self-actualization coach, and invited a few of her mutuals from our old life, her sister, her mother, even Vanessa. The friend she'd ghosted after using her name one too many times as a cover story. I set the stage with intention. When her seminar ended and she stepped out into the hallway, radiant in that false sense of spiritual power, I waited just outside the room with a soft smile and a hand gesture inviting her in. 1 minute, I said. Just one thing I need to show you. She hesitated, sensing something just barely off. She looked through the door and saw the faces, familiar ones, surprised ones, all seated quietly in a semicircle, a projector humming softly behind them. "What is this?" she asked. I said nothing. I just pressed play. The screen lit up with a video, grainy, pulled from hotel security, but unmistakable. Her, laughing outside a suite, arms wrapped around a younger man with a sleeve of tattoos and a hand casually tucked into the back of her jeans. No sound, just image after image. Her entering rooms she never mentioned. Sitting in cafes, stroking his face, letting him kiss her neck while she wore the bracelet I'd given her on our anniversary. She didn't speak for a full 20 seconds, frozen in the doorway like someone realizing they'd walked into their own funeral. Then came the performance. "It's not what you think," she said quickly, starting to the others. "I can explain." I raised a hand. "No need." Her voice rose slightly. "We were just talking. You have no idea what's been going on with me. I've been lost, and he understood parts of me you never even tried to see." I nodded slowly, eyes fixed on her. So it was therapy. With tongue. She flinched, then straightened, defensive now. You never listened. You mocked my healing. You made me feel small. What I did was wrong. Yes, but you pushed me there. You neglected me. Her mother gasped, quietly. I didn't flinch. I didn't neglect you. I gave you freedom. I gave you space. I gave you my trust, and you used it as a prop in your little rebranding campaign. She scoffed, arms crossing. Don't act like some wounded saint. You're just mad I took back control. She looked at the audience now, voice rising with hollow confidence. I finally prioritized myself. I finally stopped living like someone's houseplant. The room was silent. Even her sister, the one who always sided with her, sat frozen, hand over her mouth. You didn't prioritize yourself, I said quietly, walking over to the laptop and pulling up another file. You destroyed the one person who was on your side. And for what? Some temporary validation from a man who calls himself a soul artist and lives in a van. Her face turned red. Not from guilt, yet, but from embarrassment. This is cruel, she snapped. This is beneath you. I smiled. So is cheating. But here we are. She tried again. Fine. I made mistakes. We both did. But you could have talked to me. You could have tried to work through it. Her voice cracked. You didn't have to do this publicly. I stepped forward, inches from her now, my voice like stone. You were already doing it publicly. You just thought no one was watching. Her hands were trembling now. Her shoulders had curled in slightly, as if finally registering the depth of the stage she'd built for herself, and how far she had to fall from it. She looked around, eyes wild now, searching for someone to pull her out. But no one moved. The silence was no longer polite. It was judgmental, heavy, and precise. What do you want from me? She whispered. I leaned in, my voice barely audible. Nothing. I just wanted you to see yourself. The unfiltered version. She blinked hard, jaw trembling. I don't, I said, softly but firmly. Every word now is just another crack in a mask that's already collapsing. The screen behind her went dark. Her image faded. But no one stood. No one clapped. No one comforted. The room hung in silence, as if waiting to see if she would run or collapse. I didn't leave. Not yet. I stood there, still, letting her feel the full weight of exposure, not with rage, not with drama, but with the cold precision of truth laid bare in front of everyone she thought would always follow her lead. She followed me out of the room like a woman chasing a ghost, except this time, the ghost was her own reflection, and it was slipping through her fingers with every breath she wasted. The hallway was quiet, our footsteps echoing like punctuation marks between her outbursts. So that's it. She snapped, heels clicking against the tile, her voice already rising. You pull that little stunt, humiliate me, and then just walk away? You think that makes you the good guy? I didn't answer. She hated that. She needed me to react, to spark, to rage, because that would mean she still had power. You smothered me. You know that? She hissed, stepping in front of me, trying to block my path. You never listened, never understood me. I was dying in that house. I tilted my head slightly. You seemed healthy enough in hotel rooms. Her jaw clenched. Her pupils twitched. You were boring, she spat, voice sharper now. Predictable. You lived like a spreadsheet. You think a woman wants that? You think I should have stayed in that dull little bubble you called a life? I raised an eyebrow. You used that dull little bubble to fund your retreats, your crystals, and your affair. She flinched, then sneered. You're a child. A petty, vindictive child. This wouldn't have happened if you were a real man. I stepped closer, not aggressive, just enough for her to smell her own panic coming off her skin. No. It happened because you're a coward in yoga pants, disguising betrayal as enlightenment. She opened her mouth, ready to spit something venomous, but nothing came out. Her lips moved, then stopped. She took a step back. You think you've won? She said, voice shaking now. You think this little show makes you better than me? I didn't answer. I just looked at her, the way you look at a painting you used to love but now realize was a forgery. Say something, she demanded, voice cracking. Stop acting like some stone statue. Say it. Say whatever you've been dying to say. I finally did. You never loved me. You loved how I made you feel about yourself. She blinked fast. Her lips trembled. I gave you everything, she said, her voice suddenly small. I changed for you. I sacrificed. No, I said. You changed for the applause. And you sacrificed loyalty for attention. Her breathing picked up. The facade was falling fast now. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered. I didn't want to hurt you. You just wanted to feed, I replied, calmly. You needed worship, And when I stopped clapping for your every reinvention, you found someone else who would. He doesn't even matter, she muttered, now walking in circles like she was trying to outrun her own shame. It wasn't serious. It wasn't even real. Then why did you lie so thoroughly for something so meaningless? I asked, folding my arms. Why burn a home to light a match? She covered her mouth with one hand, like she was holding in a scream or a sob. I made a mistake. No, I said, voice flat. You made 100 conscious choices and called them growth. She lunged forward again, desperation now fully setting in. We can fix this. You're just hurt. You're reacting. I can change. You've already changed, I said. The problem is, now everyone sees it. Her face collapsed, just for a moment. Just long enough for her to realize that the words no longer worked. The spell was broken. I wasn't there to fix her anymore. I wasn't there at all. What stood in front of her now wasn't a man begging to be chosen. It was the mirror she'd avoided for years. And it terrified her. Please, she whispered, but even she didn't believe in the word anymore. She was pleading to a door that had already closed. The sound of her own voice, raw and cracking, echoed off the sterile walls and fell flat to the floor like a dying performance. I walked past her slowly, deliberately, without a glance back. She didn't follow this time, because she finally understood what silence meant. Not defeat, not surrender, but total disinterest. I wasn't hers anymore, not even in pain. And that was the cruelest truth of all. The first move was silence. Absolute, tactical, unnerving silence. She still believed she had time, that I was wounded, retreating, licking my ego in some dimly lit man cave while she figured out which version of her story would keep her reputation intact. That's what made it easy. Because while she played damage control with half-truths and performative remorse, I was already deploying phase 1. I started with the money. The joint account was frozen within 48 hours, citing suspected fraud, and I rerouted my paychecks to a separate institution she didn't even know existed. The financial advisor I'd met weeks prior? He finalized the asset transfers with clean, legal precision. Every shared investment, every retirement fund, every property line she'd once claimed was ours was now under my exclusive ownership, reorganized, protected, sealed. She wouldn't notice until her card declined at Whole Foods. I left the car for last, her prized electric SUV, the one she used to post about with hashtags like #GreenQueen and #RoadTozen. It was in my name. I called the dealership, updated the status, disabled the key via the app, and scheduled a tow to pick it up while she was at her next somatic intimacy workshop. I watched her from across the parking lot as she clicked the unlock button and stared in confusion when the doors wouldn't respond. I didn't smile. I just left. Phase 2. Exposure. No screaming, no social media rants, no public spectacle, just a neat, precisely worded email to key individuals in her world. Her sister received a Google Drive folder labeled, for clarity, containing timestamped screenshots, location logs, hotel bills, and a selection of audio clips, her voice, her lies, layered with the dates she claimed to be on solo vision quests. Her mother got a similar package, slightly gentler in tone, focused more on how I'd tried, waited, trusted. No accusations, just the evidence, laid out like a forensic report. No interpretation needed. Her employer was trickier. She worked as a trauma-informed empowerment coach for women in corporate leadership, which meant her brand depended on authenticity and integrity. I waited until after her webinar titled, Holding Space with Honor, and sent an anonymous tip to the HR director with a short video compilation, her cuddled up in her affair partner's lap at a wellness lodge, laughing about how some husbands are too dense to feel energy shifts. It wasn't vulgar. It was damning. Phase 3. The home. She still had things there, boxes of intention candles, racks of yoga gear, a drawer full of herbs she never used but insisted brought grounded feminine energy. I boxed them all, labeled them neatly, and had them delivered to the address listed on her retreat business registration. I changed the locks, switched the utilities, reprogrammed the security system. She texted, confused. I didn't reply. She called. I let it ring. She emailed, subject line, we need to talk like adults. I forwarded it to my lawyer. Because, by then, the divorce had already been filed. Quietly. Cleanly. She wouldn't know until the papers hit her inbox via certified digital delivery at 7 a.m. on a Monday, timed perfectly for the moment she started her weekly live podcast on radical honesty and conscious partnerships. She paused mid-sentence. Her phone buzzed. Her face changed. And I watched it live, sipping coffee, as she tried to smile through the beginning of her own unraveling. Phase 4. Social. I didn't post revenge. I posted peace. A single photo, me, standing on a cliffside, sun behind me, arm around someone new. A woman who wasn't a replacement, but a reflection of what she never was, honest. The caption read, "Some storms teach you to swim. Others teach you to build a better boat." She blocked me within the hour. Too late. Her audience had already begun asking questions. People messaged me. I didn't respond to most. But the ones who mattered got the truth, clean and simple, without venom. Just clarity. Because vengeance isn't noise. It's the precision of a man who doesn't need to destroy someone with fire. He just removes the oxygen and watches her collapse under the weight of her own lies. And the best part? She never saw it coming. Not because I outsmarted her, but because she never believed I had the strength to walk away without looking back. She mistook kindness for weakness, forgiveness for submission, silence for surrender. But what she failed to understand, what she finally realized far too late, is that when a man truly stops caring, he doesn't burn bridges. He builds walls and locks the doors behind him. It happened on a Saturday, ironically, the same kind of polished, pastel-toned weekend she once called sacred space on her Instagram stories. She was the keynote speaker at a local women's wellness gala, standing on stage in her signature flowing dress, glowing under soft lights and saying things like, "Honor your intuition, and truth is the highest frequency." The seats were full. Her parents were there, front row. So were her sister and the very friends she used to whisper to about how she'd finally evolved beyond the small life we built together. The applause was polite, the room warm with performative admiration, until the screen behind her flickered. Just a moment. A half-second hiccup in the display, as if the universe itself was clearing its throat. She didn't notice at first. She kept talking, until her voice echoed over itself. And then a video appeared, not part of her slideshow. Grainy hotel footage. Her. A man, not her husband. Arms tangled. A kiss. Another angle. Her laughing on a bed, drinking wine, whispering, "He's so clueless. I swear he still thinks I'm at a breathwork seminar." The audio played clearly, brutally. The room went still. She froze, staring at the screen like it was bleeding. Her mic picked up the sound of her breath catching. She fumbled with the remote, clicked aimlessly, tried to cut it, but it kept playing. Then another clip. Screenshots of messages, "You bring out a side of me I forgot I had." Timestamped during a weekend she claimed to be detoxing in silence. Her voice, in a recorded call, saying, "He's just background noise at this point." Gasps rippled through the crowd like waves crashing against glass. Her mother stood up, walked out without a word. Her sister followed. Two of her so-called tribe leaders turned their eyes to the floor, visibly sinking into their chairs. And her best friend, once her loudest cheerleader, stood and looked straight at me across the room before walking over and sitting beside me. The silence was surgical. Her smile, once so controlled and curated, began to shake. She forced a laugh, light, fake. "Okay, wow. Clearly someone has a lot of time on their hands," she said into the mic, voice brittle. This was taken completely out of context. But her eyes were darting now, wide, bloodshot, searching for anyone still in her corner. She tried again. "Let's be honest. Who here hasn't made mistakes? Relationships are messy. Life is complex. I'm being punished for being human." No one moved. The screen faded to black, but the damage was immortal. Her tone shifted, desperate now. "You people don't know the whole story. You're judging me based on edited clips. You think he's innocent?" She pointed toward me. All eyes turned. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just watched her. Calm. Silent. The way she used to hate, because it meant she couldn't control the narrative. Her voice cracked again. "He's not who you think he is. He's manipulative, cold, calculated. He set me up." Still, I said nothing. My presence alone dismantled every sentence she tried to string together. She looked right at me now, as if begging for a reaction, some signal that she still mattered. But I stayed stone still. And that was when it finally broke. Her hands shook, her breath shortened, and for the first time in years, the woman who spent her life crafting illusions had no words left to wrap around herself. Her lover, seated toward the back in a too-tight blazer, stood up slowly and left without a glance in her direction. She saw it. She tried to call out his name, but choked on it. Her voice, so often dripping with smugness, now barely registered above a whisper. "Kai," she said. He didn't turn back. That, more than anything, shattered her. The smile collapsed. The makeup cracked under the tears. She stood there on stage, trembling, mascara streaking, clinging to a mic that no longer amplified power, only silence. My silence. And that silence was the executioner. Not one person clapped. Not one hand reached out. Not one word came to rescue her from the truth she had buried beneath affirmations and mantras. I stood slowly, adjusted my jacket, and looked her in the eye one last time. She saw it then, what I had become. Not broken, not bitter, just beyond her reach. She opened her mouth, one last desperate attempt to salvage the script. But no one was listening. Not anymore. It happened 2 weeks after the gala, the fallout still simmering, her business crumbling, her silence growing louder by the day, when she decided to show up at my nephew's birthday party. Uninvited, dressed like it was still her world. She walked in like a martyr, shoulders squared, chin high, faking a smile so fragile it looked painted on with trembling hands. My family froze when they saw her. My mother's eyes narrowed. My sister physically stepped between her and the kids. But she kept walking, straight toward me, like she had something to prove. "We need to talk," she hissed through clenched teeth. I stood, slowly, and the room hushed as if the air itself knew something was about to snap. "You have nothing left to say," I said, calmly but loud enough for the room to hear. She laughed, brittle and bitter. "You're really going to act like this? In front of your whole family? Like you're some innocent victim?" "Innocent?" I echoed. "No, just the one who didn't lie, cheat, and perform betrayal dressed as empowerment." Her eyes flicked left and right. Everyone was watching now. My brother's wife covered her mouth. My father crossed his arms. She took a step forward, voice rising. "I was drowning. Do you even get that? You made me feel like a ghost in my own marriage. Like a housemaid with a heartbeat." "No," I snapped, finally raising my voice, just enough to punch through the air. "You made yourself a ghost when you left without leaving. You were sleeping next to me and dreaming about someone else's hands." She stepped back, stung, but still clinging to the spotlight. "Oh please, you think you were some prize? You were routine. Predictable. You stopped trying years ago." I leaned in just enough for the room to hear. "And you started trying with every man who clapped at your seminars." Gasps. One woman covered her chest. A kid asked what that meant and was quickly pulled into another room. She spun, looking for someone to defend her, and locked eyes with her mother, who looked away. "Don't turn on me too," she snapped. "You don't know what it's like to live under someone who watches instead of loves." Her mother stood. "You told me you were working on the marriage, while you were sneaking out to hotels. You looked me in the face and lied." "I had to," she screamed now. "You think I could be honest in a house where everything I felt was treated like weakness?" "No," I shot back. "You didn't lie because you were afraid. You lied because it was convenient. Because truth requires sacrifice, and you only sacrifice when there's a camera on you." Her face crumbled, then reassembled into rage. "You're emotionally dead. That's why I looked elsewhere. You never touched me like you used to, never listened unless I was crying. You drove me to him." "No," I said, stepping closer, now face to face. "You drove him to you. You hunted, not healed. You used your pain like perfume and sprayed it on anyone who gave you attention. Don't mistake that for being desired. You weren't loved, you were used. Just like you used me." Her hand twitched. She almost slapped me. Stopped herself. People around us shifted uncomfortably. Her voice cracked. "You think I don't regret it? You think I haven't suffered?" "No," I said. "I think you regret being caught. I think you suffer from not getting away with it. There's a difference." The room was dead quiet now. Her ex-lover, standing at the edge of the backyard near the grill, tried to leave unnoticed. She saw him, pointed. "He cared about me. At least he saw me. He saw what you wanted him to see," I said. "And now he sees you for real. That's why he ran. Just like everyone else who built their image of you on the lies you curated. Once they saw the raw footage, they walked." She shook her head, tears now welling up, but her fury wouldn't let them fall. "You're cold," she whispered. "You're enjoying this." I paused, looked around the room at every face, every stunned expression. "No," I said. "I'm mourning the woman I once believed in. I'm just not mourning quietly anymore." She sobbed then, not just a tear, but a broken, guttural sound that cracked through her fake poise like a dropped mirror. Someone tried to pull her away. She resisted. "This isn't fair," she screamed. "I gave you everything. You gave me nothing you didn't already offer someone else," I said. "And I'm done begging for borrowed affection." And then I walked right past her. past her mother, past the shocked faces and quiet whispers and the cameras that someone had inevitably raised by now. I didn't flinch. I didn't look back, because her collapse wasn't mine to manage anymore. She had built her empire on illusion, and today, finally, it caved in with everyone watching. She disappeared from public view within a week. The podcast she once bragged about gone. The coaching clients she once flaunted on social media silent. Her accounts slowly turned private, then vanished altogether. Word had spread fast, like gasoline chasing a match. The videos, the screenshots, the recordings, they had done more than expose her. They redefined her. No one saw a misunderstood woman seeking growth anymore. They saw a manipulator in a linen dress, a fraud wrapped in crystals and buzzwords. Her empowerment brand lost sponsors overnight. One company made a public statement, distancing themselves from her lack of ethical integrity. Her boss called her in. No confrontation, no drama, just a single sentence in a manila envelope. By Friday, she was jobless. The friends she counted on for damage control? They vanished like smoke. Even Vanessa, her ride or die, blocked her. Her own sister unfollowed her, then posted a photo with me and the caption, "Truth always finds its way to light." Her parents stopped answering calls. She showed up at their house once. Her mother opened the door, looked at her with tear-filled eyes, and said only this, "You lied to us while looking us in the eyes. We raised you better." Then she shut the door. She moved 2 towns over, rented a dingy apartment behind a yoga studio that never returned her calls about job openings. Last I heard, she was working part-time at a juice bar under a different name, no longer Dr. Elise, trauma-informed coach, just Lisa from behind the counter, pouring kale smoothies for people who'd never heard of her. The affair partner ghosted her the moment the heat turned public. Blocked her, moved states, deleted his pages. He was never going to stay, not without secrecy and admiration. Without the fantasy, she was just fallout. I got the first message a month after the confrontation. A text from an unknown number. "I still love you. I miss you. I've changed." I stared at it for a full minute, then replied, "Strange. I don't even remember your name anymore." She called once. Blocked. She tried again from a different number, and this time I picked up, just to finish it. Her voice was unrecognizable, strained, hoarse, like someone who hadn't slept in days. "Please," she said. "Please, just hear me out." I didn't speak. I wanted to see if she could carry the weight of her own silence. She broke down within 10 seconds. "I lost everything," she cried. "I know I hurt you, but I was confused. I thought I needed something new, but I didn't. I needed you. I need you now." Still, I said nothing. Because what was there left to say? She begged. She pleaded. She said she couldn't eat, couldn't breathe, couldn't live knowing what she'd thrown away. "I know I deserve this," she whispered, "but I'm asking anyway. Just give me a chance to be different, to undo it." That's when I spoke, slowly, clearly, like carving words into stone. "You didn't just burn the bridge. You danced in the ashes." She sobbed. "I don't know who I am without you." "Then maybe," I said, "you shouldn't have lied to the person who did." She tried again, a final breathless push. "Don't you miss us?" I ended the call with the last words she'd ever hear from me. "I miss who you pretended to be." I blocked the number, stood at my window, and watched the leaves fall outside like old illusions dropping to the ground. And just like that, it was over. Not with rage, not with violence, but with truth. Cold, hard, unrelenting truth. Thank you for listening to my story. Where are you from? And tell me, did you enjoy the fall?